Thank you for joining us at this development dialogue. We've got an exciting lineup of presentations today. We've structured this seminar as a big meeting format rather than the usual webinar. And that way we can try and facilitate more discussion and see who's in the room. Often in these big webinars, you don't see who else is participating. So we're structuring the format of the meeting slightly differently. And in that way, we're hoping to get a lot of engagement from the audience. The purpose of doing it this way is to make it a bit more like the usual tips development dialogue that we would have in person, where we would try and get a lot of insights from other people in the room, understanding that there's a lot of expertise out there and it's not just the panel, but rather also a group of experts who are thinking and engaging on these issues and have some insights to share as well. So we encourage discussion once we've had our opening presentations, and we look forward to your comments as well from the audience. If you would have seen the agenda that we would have circulated, the focus of the discussion is thinking around South Africa's industrial policy and how we align that to the quality infrastructure that we have in South Africa. So the institutions of South African Bureau of Standards, NAMISA, NRCS, and SANAS, and how they align with the importance of quality infrastructure in supporting a post-COVID recovery. So we are very keen to hear your insights on that. And we have some experts from across the world. We have, we've got Uli, who we've worked with on projects. Some of you would have known him when he was in South Africa, helping us on our research 2 years ago now. And he's going to be talking about the global trends in quality infrastructure. And he works at a consulting firm called Mesopartner, and he's one of the partners there and is going to share some of his insights. We've then got Eduardo Trajano Gadret. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Eduardo. And he works at INMETRO in Brazil, and he's going to be sharing insights from that environment. And then Martin Chesire, he is from Kenya, and he's from the Kenyan Accreditation Service and is the Chief Executive Officer there. So welcome, Martin, and thank you for joining us. The discussion is going to be started off by Tshenge Demana, who is the Chief Director at the Department of Trade and Industry, and he is responsible for quality infrastructure institutions in South Africa from the Department of Trade and Industry side, and has played a very active role in this space for many years now. And he'll kick us off on the discussion, and we're looking forward to his insights and how quality infrastructure can support industrial development, particularly as we're starting to get into a post-COVID recovery environment. Even though the conversation is focused on South Africa, we are looking at these international experiences, and we are looking at some universal applicability. I think there's the issues we confronted here are probably very relevant to what's happening in Brazil and Kenya. And these are challenges that are confronting all of us and facing all of us as we thinking about how do we recover from the pandemic and get our economies onto a more sustainable path. Okay, with that said, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sure there will be some more people joining us along the way, and we'll then move after our discussion after our presentations into the discussion. Let me then start off with Tshenge Demana. Over to you, Tshenge.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and open this meeting. I think I must thank my colleagues at TIPS for this opportunity. So I will start by welcoming all the delegates, especially the speakers. As you have heard, we had We have, I think it's four speakers today to give us the presentation. And let me also welcome colleagues from South Africa, the South African Technical Infrastructure, Quality Infrastructure Specialist. I think they are in the audience as well. They are our specialists. They are the technical people who do the work. So they will assist in the discussions, I think. And I also want to welcome the regulators. They are some of the key users of the services of the quality infrastructure. So it's always good to keep them in mind. Industry at large, you are welcome. You are the beneficiary of the work that we do. If there's any stakeholder that I have forgotten, I will just say that all protocol observed, like we always do in government. As you heard, my name is Tshenge Demana, and I'm with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition here in South Africa. So my input is going to be short, so I think maybe I should just warn you there. So to begin with, quality infrastructure, it's an enabler, as we know. In the way that we think about it here in South Africa, we see it as having a dual role. Protecting the health and safety of the consumer is one, and it's health, safety of the consumer and the environment. I should not forget the environment at this time when there are discussions about climate change. And then the second role is that of supporting increased market access. So we tend to parcel it into those two roles in the country. So in our context, we have realized that there's a need for a more integrated approach to quality infrastructure. Although we have well-established standards, conformity assessment and metrology, and accreditation bodies in the country, there seems to be a need for a more collaborative approach between the public entities on the one hand and the private sector quality service providers on the other. In this regard, we think one can be able to optimize the resources in the country that are available for the end users. So we have started to develop a formal quality policy in order to address this need that we have identified. Some of us know that our approach in industry development it's based on strategies that are called sectoral master plans. So the participation of the quality infrastructure as a whole, entities and industry players, has been limited. But we think going forward, that is one of the areas that we have to put a lot more emphasis because it is through quality that you really have an objective basis for competitiveness. And so if you don't have that, your industry strategy does suffer. So I think you're going to hear a lot more from the speakers. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, with those few words, let me reiterate that please do feel welcome to the workshop and participate as much as you can. I think the discussions are going to be as fruitful as possible. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tshenge, for those words of welcome and for setting the scene for this dialogue and the importance of quality infrastructure in so much of what we do, that we really need to shine a light on what happens in this space and the importance of this environment. With that, let me then move over to Uli, who is going to be presenting on some of the global perspectives and some of the research that he's done. Uli, you can take over and do your screen share.
Thank you first to TIPS and the TIPS team, and also to DTIC for inviting me and setting up also this development dialogue. I think this is already an achievement to bring the topic of quality infrastructure in the scene of development studies and in the industrial policy, because quality infrastructure can be only useful when it's put in a context. It's an infrastructure which should serve major development. Therefore, I think this linkages to industrial policy and broader development policy is very important, and enriches also the use of the quality infrastructure. The term quality infrastructure itself is quite new. In South Africa, you are more familiar to talk about technical infrastructure or SQAM. Therefore, during the studies, we had a lot of discussion on that. The international term now of this system, which brings together different components like the measurement sites, metrology, the standards, accreditation, conformity assessment, and also the regulatory part. Globally, it's now called quality infrastructure, which brings together different stakeholders, and as Tshenge Demana already mentioned, from the public side, but also from the private side. And it's referring to a broader system, which includes also legal framework. All quality infrastructure in the world is organized at the national level, and there we have normally laws and acts which organize this system. Till now, we have mostly standard acts and metrology acts, and we are looking also forward to creating proper quality infrastructure legislation, which bring the whole system together. Because there's still a challenge globally to articulate this as one system. And as Tshenge already mentioned, we have two areas. We call this also the two wings of the butterfly. One is the mandatory part, which is related to what in trade jargon is called legitimate objectives, to protect the safety and security of the consumers and the environment of your country. And on the other wing of the butterfly is about competitiveness, innovation, and voluntary arrangement which make the economy work. And these voluntary arrangements to fulfill them is a passport for global trade. Therefore, this is also makes the system quite sophisticated, because it responds or gives a response to two realities. One is a private reality and one is a public reality, and brings both together. We suggest that, like we're talking globally about trade, we should also globally talk about quality infrastructure. And we think that this terminology has certain advantages, because it helps to make the whole system more understandable. The arguments for quality infrastructure, as I already mentioned, is it's not only relevant for the international market and exports, it's also important for the domestic market. And in many countries, especially in emerging and development countries, quality infrastructure started with exports and the foreign markets, but the consumers at your own country should have also the right to get high quality and safe and secure products. Therefore, quality infrastructure needs to be applied also to the domestic economy. And at the end, it's also more efficient to have only one system with the same rules than discriminating between products for exports and for local consumers. Therefore, this is quite important. Now, as we are in a transition phase of humanity, to say it this way, with the pandemic and also with the threats of climate change. Quality infrastructure is also moving now to broader goals. It's not only anymore about trade, it's to contribute to a broader sustainable development. And objectives like social and environmental objectives are gaining importance. And at the end, the measure of an effective and efficient quality management system at the national level should be the well-being of the domestic population or of the citizens of your country. As we also say, well, we still have, as in the acronyms, we still have the components inside, the metrology, standardization, accreditation, conformity assessment, and market surveillance. And the new definition emphasizes that the scope of quality infrastructure goes beyond the pillars and includes also the whole regulatory framework and the need for coordination and integration of this regulatory framework, like agriculture policy, like innovation policy, like health or telecommunication policy. Again, coming back to the terminology, we think it's good to disseminate and sensitize stakeholder and the broader public on the terminology of quality infrastructure, because this is the agreed term at the global level. There is this INET-QI network where the global organizations from standardization, from metrology and accreditation, also supporting organizations like several United Nations organizations, the World Bank, and others are supporting this definition. Therefore, the international uniform terminology is helpful, and what we think is also better than the sum of different letters to take this description of overall system, and which is broader than only four components. And the last point is also there is a linkage between national quality infrastructure and national quality policy. National quality policy, as Tshenge Demana already mentioned, this is now developing formally in several countries, and I'm happy to hear that South Africa also started to formalize a national quality policy. At the end, South Africa was even globally a pioneer on setting up a national quality policy, even if this was not named this way. That was the big Scrum review. But this set up the structure, what was taken afterwards up by UNIDO to formalize a handbook on national quality policy. Therefore, I wanted to highlight that South Africa, with their efforts to coordinate, and especially also with the support of one consultant, Martin Kellerman from South Africa, developed a template for making this kind of policies at the global stage, where now several countries are going for, and we will hear this also from Brazil and from Kenya, that both countries also working or implementing a national quality policy. Important is also, when we are talking about national quality infrastructure and policy, to see that this is enabled at different levels. National quality infrastructure is always at the national level, and here we have different organizations which are in charge. We have the LMI South Africa, SANES, SAPS, and NRCS in South Africa, representing each of them one of the components of the quality infrastructure system. Then we have mirror organizations or arrangement at the level of Southern Africa. And what is probably even recently more important and gaining importance at the African or Pan-African level, we have also these mirror organizations, and the Pan-African integration and to develop a Pan-African quality infrastructure is a quite important challenge, where South African organizations are in the forefront to make this infrastructure possible. And as I said before, also at the global level, there are organizations which are agreeing about the rules and especially the mutual recognition of the national systems. The international organization, and especially the organizations for accreditation like ILAC and IAF, are very important, that the tests or the certifications you have in one country are also recognized by the other countries, and they work on a globally integrated quality infrastructure system. What we as a consultancy company, and I would say even more as a knowledge creation company, are doing is that we are setting up since some years the Global Quality Infrastructure Index, and we try to measure indicators and bring them together in a global ranking, how quality infrastructure is developed. And what you see here in the landscape, the dark blue countries are the most advanced in quality infrastructure. And we see that South Africa, but also Brazil and also Kenya are relatively more developed than other countries in their surroundings. Therefore, I think the choice for these countries is based on data evidence. What we have done in the report for the DTIC is that we looked for the relationship between the quality infrastructure index, what is the horizontal layer here, the development of a national quality infrastructure, and what is called the economic complexity index, which represents the sophistication and the strengths of competitiveness and exports of countries. And what we see here, that one of our benchmark countries, South Korea, is quite advanced in both. It's in the upper right quadrant. And South Africa, here we see that it's more or less in the middle, near to Australia and Brazil. But the quality infrastructure formally is more developed than the economic complexity of the country. One interpretation of this could be that there is a lot of quality infrastructure, but there's still a need to communicate or to make more use in new sectors and emergent sectors of the economy of these quality infrastructure to move the flag of South Africa in this graphic up. The other great points here are other countries in the world. In total, now we have in the new index 184 countries, and then we can see a broader benchmarking. When we look to Kenya, we see Kenya has a less developed quality infrastructure, but in economic complexity, it reaches the medium level. There is probably a lot of space to improve, especially the quality infrastructure to meet the industrial needs. To conclude, I will come back to the topic of this development dialogue. What is the role of quality infrastructure in the post-COVID world? I think one important point of quality infrastructure and its contribution, we can call quality infrastructure as a trust-building machinery. Because of this mutual recognition agreements, these standards which are recognized globally, we have a system where everybody can trust in. And now, as global value chains are broken and need to be restored, quality infrastructure is a good way to use these services to rebuild and also to give to new players access to the international trade. Quality infrastructure showed also already in the COVID pandemic that companies using this kind of services are much more resilient than companies that doesn't. Therefore, to use quality infrastructure to mitigate risk and foster the resilience of especially the SME sector of your countries, I think this is a big opportunity. And probably we need more dedicated action in this regard to encourage SMEs to adopt these kind of standards. The other big topic is digitalization. Quality infrastructure generates platforms, generate a joint understanding of technology and can support digitalization. And at the same time, quality infrastructure is on a way that it needs to be digitalized much more. Today, we're talking, for example, of that machine can read standards, or that calibration certificates should be machinable readable, that we're using clouds services, etc. Therefore, quality infrastructure is on one hand an enabler, and at the same time, the quality infrastructure needs to be digitalized much more. The other trend is that quality infrastructure is also not only about assessing conformities with standards and technical regulations. It should be used much more as an enabler of innovation, because in the standards, we bring together best practices, and with the technology services like measurement, testing, etc., we have a lot of knowledge in the countries. And I think a challenge for quality infrastructure is to bring in this knowledge for the industry, and this knowledge is used in a more proactive way. And last not least, I already mentioned that quality infrastructure is critical for the needed socio-ecological transformation, to have a economy which is more in tune with nature, and the requirement when we want to introduce new, more environmental friendly technologies, we need this kind of standards. And also the participation of southern hemisphere countries, because as standards are developed at the global scale, I think it's very important that southern countries participate in the development of the standards, that these standards suit the needs of countries of the southern hemisphere. And with this, I conclude my presentation, and looking forward for the other presentation and for the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Uli. I think that gives us a good opening presentation and an understanding of where all of these issues sit in terms of how we can take forward post-COVID recovery. And I think you raised critical points around bringing back confidence in international trade, which was one of the first things that we saw being hit, and the opportunities that through the COVID experience of having a QR system that's functioning well in supporting the response to COVID. So I think excellent insights, and gives us a good place to start with the discussion. Let's then move on to Eduardo, who's going to be presenting the experience from Brazil. Over to you, Eduardo.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Saul and Tshenge Demana, for organizing this meeting by the side of South Africa. Thank you for the presence of all participants, and thank you for tips for the idealization of this event. So as Saul said in the beginning of the event, I work for INMETRO. It has been now almost 20 years at the international affairs area. And most of the, or at least many of the information that I'm going to present here today are there described in Harmes-Liedtke papers of quality infrastructure in Brazil. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how we organize it in Brazil. So first of all, I will talk a little bit about INMETRO. So INMETRO is an institution, it's an autarky. Now, typical of, at least from my point of view, typical of a state, a national state. Its main goal is to guarantee the primary standards, at least from the point of view of a national metrology institute, of physical quantities of the international unit, international system of units. And these are very important for the metrology science, as you may know, and comprises traditionally its typical lines of scientific metrology, industrial metrology, and legal metrology. And more recently, there is recognition and the understanding of metrology is also important as for the development and technological innovation for industrial processes. And INMETRO is as the National Metrology Institute and also comprising other areas described previously by Ulrich as accreditation. It's also a typical function of the quality infrastructure, is a central piece of the Brazil's quality infrastructure system. And as we are organized, INMETRO also comprises other fundamental activities that joins the quality infrastructure, the technical regulation and conformity assessment, and obviously the international affairs of all these activities. So a little bit of some numbers about INMETRO. We have a laboratory campus located in the state of Rio de Janeiro. I invite you all to visit our campus there after COVID, obviously. And it is quite huge, and people from developed countries that have already visited INMETRO, they say that we have a very, very good laboratory campus. It has 52 units and 55 buildings, and our total workforce comprises 6,500 people all across the country, because as we are organized INMETRO as a central piece of the Brazilian quality infrastructure, we have also state units all across Brazil, in all the 26 federal units of Brazil. So these units, these institutes, they are responsible for market surveillance and mainly about market surveillance, but they are administrative linked to each federal state of the Union of Brazil. So as I said, INMETRO comprises metrology in its typical lines of industrial, scientific, and legal competences. Conformity assessment, it is very important for guaranteeing the safety of goods that are put in the market by manufacturers. INMETRO is also the national accreditation body, and has a very active role in providing assistance to companies, private companies that want to overcome technical barriers to trade, and also to counterparts of INMETRO that abroad that want to establish technical cooperation with us. So let's see a little bit of some all these products that have their quality assessed by INMETRO, it's very important to note that it has effects on regional trade, like in Mercosur, and also it is very important to remark that we follow international recommendations from OIML for legal metrology. So there are all these procedures of type approval of instruments that are going to be put in the market. For instance, by like taximeters. If you want to provide a taximeter for the Brazilian market, you have to send a prototype to INMETRO so that its prototype gets an approval, and then you can commercialize it. This is a typical legal metrology area. Another that is very typical in all around the world is pre-packaged products. It's very important when products are measured before and packaged before they go into the market. So these rules are launched by INMETRO, and all manufacturers, they must follow these rules, so that and it is very important for us to do a market surveillance for these products, to exercise central government control on these products. So there is a lot of applications of all these activities: metrology, technical regulation, and conformity assessment, because it is applicable to many areas of public policies. And nowadays there is an emphasis it has been set for the environmental issues, but also obviously for health issues and product security, and the quality of materials and industrial processes, and competitiveness as a whole of exports throughout the overcoming of technical barriers to trade. So as you can see on this picture, INMETRO's mark is very well known by the Brazilian public and consumers. It has a very good visibility. I think it's an active, very important asset of INMETRO, because its mark is very well known, and most of the Brazilian population know our logo mark, and it is even known abroad of Brazil. So it's very important for people to trust INMETRO when they go to look for a product in the market. And obviously, every product that has a mark of INMETRO, even if it's an accreditation mark, they see that they can trust on the system as a whole, because INMETRO gives a central rule for the system as a whole. Publishing, for instance, legal instrument on the official Gazette of Brazil. So all people must know and acknowledge what is the rule that has to be followed if you want to put a product in the market. And as you may know, also as specialists, these rules must also be followed by people from abroad Brazil that want to export for us. So you have to know in advance what is the rule applicable for your product. So this is, I would like to show our mission nowadays is to provide quality infrastructure, as Ulrich said, is a very well-known expression by the international community nowadays. providing solutions for competitiveness and adding trust, quality for products and services, obviously by Brazilian companies, and giving providing economic prosperity and well-being for society as a whole. This mission has been built throughout a strategic planning process that we have conducted last year. Yes, during last year at INMETRO, and we have now this mission has been our present goal. And our vision is to be recognized by the productive sector and the market as a toolbox, like the one that has the applicable technology, I would say, if you can understand a technology as a tool. So INMETRO has the right solution for you if you want to have your enterprise with the good quality system. Now, overcoming challenges of the present times we are living in, like the society or industry 4.0. So INMETRO has also worked a lot during last year on the modernization of its regulatory model. Now, it was viewed as it should be more clear, the rules that we publish for the public, that it should be easy to follow. Nah? So we have mainly established principles and that should be guided by INMETRO as a regulatory authority in Brazil. And these principles, we think that are going to provide us a good practice as a regulatory authority. This is important because if you do not follow understandable principles, you can put a rule that is very complex and will not be, people will not understand what, or it would be too difficult to follow. So we are doing this work right now. It has been open for public consultancy, and many people have participated in this process. I would like to have a view of our organization of INMETRO. It is structured by directorates and coordinations and other side units of like legal support or regional support in some federal states of Brazil. So it's a quite huge organization nowadays in INMETRO. We are, as I have said before, we have units all across the Brazilian federal states of Brazil. It's that comprising all of our workforce, because people in each federal state of Brazil go in the field to do market surveillance and guaranteeing that the projects are following the rules that are established by INMETRO as a regulatory authority. But the main people of INMETRO are located in Rio de Janeiro state. As I said, the international affairs area is also very important at INMETRO. We have a history of assistance by two main developed countries, I would like to say Germany has done a very good work in the past, helping INMETRO to build its main laboratories, and by the Physikalisch-Technische Bundesanstalt PTB. It's the counterpart of INMETRO at Germany. And in the United States, you have NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We have also a very long history of cooperation with them. Many people of INMETRO go there and stay there doing research for a quite good time, for a year or sometimes more. And we established bilateral cooperation with other developing countries in South America, in Central America, or even Caribbean, and also with African countries like Mozambique. Many people of INMETRO have already traveled to Mozambique in the past, as Portuguese speaking country is easier for us to do cooperation with them. We also have cooperation with South Africa. I've been to South Africa by myself in 2014 in the city of Pretoria, University of Pretoria. And obviously we have cooperation with European countries and 2 Asian countries like China. Korea also has a very big cooperation with us nowadays, more recently through KTR, and with Japan too. So we really have a very active international affairs area at INMETRO, and we are used to work together with the Brazilian Agency for Cooperation, so helping us to identify opportunities for us to establish technical cooperation. I would like to approach now the theme of this seminar of today. So what are the expectations of a post-COVID world? What we can do for helping our countries to challenge this, to recover and this great challenge that is COVID. I would like to show you this picture. It has been published by the World Trade Organization recently, and I think quality infrastructure is very important for establishing good vaccines for COVID-19. So this is a kind of topic that we could help. So I would like to cite some topics of the relation of quality infrastructure and disease like COVID-19. You have to have quantitative measurements, very precise, because if you are dealing with this high technology biological product as a vaccine, you must have trust and be very precise in it. INMETRO has its life sciences directorate, but we are trying to develop still metrology applicable to biological products. You can also develop reference materials for quality control. You can establish comparative evaluation between metrology institutes. So comparing data and the measurements you conduct in your country with the measurements that are conducted abroad. And obviously you can also take the lead and providing technical advice for the development of international standards. This is very important for new products in the future that help us to mitigate disease like COVID-19. I think also that we have good opportunities exchanging information, best practices in general. This is a picture that also has been published by the World Trade Organization. And I have written a draft project that trying to develop the idea of doing a technology roadmap for vaccines that could be like a first document, a first view of what you can do if you want to build a new fabric for vaccines. So you must know exactly what are the metrology requirements that a new vaccine fabric must have. So you can see if your country can be a good player in the international market for supplying vaccines. So I would like to invite you to take a look in this methodology of technology roadmap. It's very interesting. So you really can have a view, a map of what you can do if you have a metrology and conformity assessment requirements for manufacturing vaccines. This is not a simple product. So I think there is a huge opportunity for metrology institutes or quality infrastructure in general in all countries. So I will be available for you to discuss a little bit of each of these topics, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. I think we have a strong overview of how INMETRO works, how INMETRO works, and some of the key insights as to the importance of quality infrastructure if we want to take forward new supply chains and look at some of these technological pathways that are very much required as we move into a post-COVID world, and also deal with some of the issues that are confronting us with the environmental challenges and climate change. Let's now move over to Martin. Martin Chesire is the CEO of the Quality Infrastructure Institution in Kenya, and it's the Kenya Accreditation Service, KENAS. Martin, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to join this dialogue. Thank you to Tips, thank you, Saul, thank you, Ulrich, and Tshenge. I think we met him some time back, some years back. On behalf of KENAS, I think, or in Kenya, we probably want to share just a little bit of where we're coming from and what opportunities are there to reform our quality infrastructure. As a background of myself, I previously worked at the National Standards Body for about 11 years, from 1998, and then I moved on to work at the ISO Central Secretariat in Geneva, and then I came back into KENAS. I am now on my third year as a chief executive. So the component of quality infrastructure standardization, accreditation, and conformity assessment is something that we have been driving as a country, and also as part and parcel of my work experience. In brief, I will cover only three main areas. I will take you through the journey of the evolution of the Kenya's quality infrastructure. And then I will describe a little bit about my organization, being the youngest element of the quality infrastructure, and what I see as opportunities post-COVID to help our quality infrastructure advance. Kenya, for the colleagues who are not very familiar, we gained independence in 1963. The land mass is about 580,000. We have 5 very strong neighbors. We border Uganda, Tanzania, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. The population of the last census in 2019 is about 48 million. The pre-COVID-19 growth rate was at about 5.7. Kenya is the largest or the strongest member within the East African community, and we perhaps drive a lot of agenda items, and we are the largest trade, with about 40% of all our trade to the East African community. And we are among the first signatories to sign up to the AFCFTA. With that context, I now drive you on a journey, and I hope it will be very visible, on a timeline of where Kenya started from. I think it's useful to recognize the history, and because you're talking about trying to have a better quality infrastructure and exploit any post-COVID opportunities. So the first component of Kenya's quality infrastructure started with the weights and measures service way back at the beginning of the 20th century. And it was under the National Police Service in 1912. It took another nearly 40 years for a reform to happen, and led into the separation of the weights and measures service into a department, an autonomous department within the Ministry of Commerce and Industry in 1951. The weights and measures department also performed the foundational roles of standardization, and they were the creator for the establishment of a standardization body. And consequently, in 1959, they subscribed to be a member of ISO as a correspondent member. In 1974, our national standards body was now formally established by statute, and had the mandate covering standardization, components of metrology, testing as core activities. The standards body then became a member of ISO, a founding member in 1977. The next shift in the evolution of our quality infrastructure was the need for accreditation, particularly for the measurement service. So the National Calibration Service was established as a department within the National Standards Body, Kenya Bureau of Standards. It is at that point that then, in the context of the international memberships, nothing much changed until around about 2000, when the standardization work for electrotechnical area, Kenya then became an affiliate member. And also the following year, in 2002, they also became an associate of the IPM, the International Scientific Metrology Organization. A significant reform happened within the National Standards Body in the year 2004. The first one was restructuring, and it acquired additional responsibilities as a regulator. Similarly, it also resulted in the creation of the National Accreditation Service. The rest of the evolution more focused on the accreditation body, taking up the membership, associate membership at ILAC and IIF. And in 2009, the National Accreditation Body was separated both physically and by resources from the National Standards Body. So the National Standards Body now playing the driver for reforms within the quality infrastructure. To date, and let me put it that way, to date, there's been no much significant reform besides the legal statute for the National Accreditation Body being published in 2019. The Ministry of Industrialization in 2019, as well, late 2019, established a ministerial task force to reform the quality infrastructure. Subsequently, the recommendation from the task force were then put under a technical steering committee, which was established immediately we entered into COVID in March last year. The task technical steering committee is still yet to work on the recommendation and develop a roadmap for arriving at our national quality policy. But in the meantime, a great opportunity has come forward with respect to the adoption of the African quality policy in September this year. So with that, it gives the status in which the global QI index placed Kenya for the various components. And in summary, as you can see, metrology is given a significant role, and I think this is driven largely from the scientific metrology side as having the most significant percentage in terms of fulfillment of the requirements of an advanced quality infrastructure. I now turn just to summarize what are the things that perhaps are holding us back. In the 2004 reforms of the National Standards Body, the Kenya Bureau of Standards acquired additional responsibility. The first one is to be the national regulator for imported products. And then it is also the national regulator for the existing food, materials, consumer-related products, which they certify to compulsory standards. Currently, there are about 12,000 such products, and also the role for quality promotion. So they play 5 responsibilities within our overall quality infrastructure. The 2 primary ones from its establishment are the National Standards Body and the National Metrology Institute. The current throughput of the National Standards Body is about 600 standards per year, both revised and also newly formulated. The National Metrology Institute, if I give a view, is still stunted, given that the focus, the moment you acquire powers to be a regulator, then the market shifts to compliance and you transfer more resources to elements of ensuring compliance and enforcement than playing the primary roles that it is supposed to play, that the institution is supposed to play. And those are some of the things we expect the task force to then flesh out and define a roadmap of how we manage this arrangement. The National Accreditation Body, which was hived off from 2009, principally we play one mandate to assess and accredit and have oversight over all conformity assessment bodies. We have a great opportunity because we are still the only accreditation body within the East African community. Although we have foreign accreditations being undertaken, for example, from SANAS. SANAS, I think, has 18% of the entire East African market. We command about 70%, 71% as it stands. But we are having an arrangement to make a transfer of accreditation, particularly those within Kenya from SANAS. The Department for Weights and Measures, if you go back to the timeline, since 1951, not much reform has happened for it, besides the implementation of the new constitution, which created devolution of different components of the quality infrastructure. And the main one was creation of the county weights and measures departments under the county governments. We believe, even with the COVID coming in, we had a lot of items that should fall. For example, thermal guns should be falling under the control of weights and measures because they're used for everybody can buy them, pressure that people do. So we believe there's scope to reform their mandate with respect to verification that they undertake and the type approval, rather than relying heavily on other regulators for example, the Ministry of Health. I will just highlight a few things about my organization, the National Accreditation Body, KENAS. We have 2 mandates. One, our present legal instrument that was approved in 2019, and the East African Community legal instrument of 2006 that empowers us to assist the partner states to be able to have accredited conformity assessment services and use results of conformity assessment bodies. Our focus in terms of orientation following the new legal statutes, we consider our vision is to be the symbol of trust for the outcome of quality, safety, and environmental assurance. And our role is to ensure that there's greater confidence in accredited conformity assessment bodies, not only for governments, but for businesses, consumers, and the public, and including the regulators. We have 4 program areas. One is the core mandate accreditation and assessment services. The second area is training and knowledge transfer. And the third one is information advisory, where who can access, who is accredited for what. That's a program area that we really focus on. And finally, given that we are still under a transition on the reform for the new legal statute, a number of institutional structures and capacities to be developed for organization. Some key results. Presently, we have 4 primary schemes that we are creating to, and we are active in 7 countries now. From Ghana, India, for inspection, Rwanda, Somalia, the recent one added on our list, Sudan, Tanzania, the Gambia, and Uganda. 54% of our accredited bodies are private sector, and the rest is public sector. So the count as at the end of September is 228 accredited bodies that are active. We had some sanctioning. The number would have been about 243. So that is what counted. We have at present for this period an additional 29 clients yet to go through accreditation. So what are the opportunities post-COVID? For us, we're looking at the technical steering committee, and as an organization, we want to be in that table to ensure that we're able to advance the national quality policy. We reviewed the African quality policy, and it puts very good recommendations on how to structure and take advantage of accredited services and how to enable private sector to play a greater role in delivering conformity services. During the COVID, within Kenya, we didn't really invest much with respect to how we could respond more deeply, given the state of our quality infrastructure. But with respect to standardization, I think there was the highest participation within the country, both at the international level, for development of standards. Given as a response to COVID-19, and this is the debate that is going on now, a number of standards were provided for free. But now the markets wants other standards for free. So it's bringing a new dynamic that we offer the standards for an interim solution so that they could be accessed for the PPE production. But now the market wants that to be a continued agenda, that standards can as well be free overall. With respect to accreditation, we were able to put in place mechanisms to be able to undertake assessments remotely. And we accredited now 3 SARS-CoV-19 laboratories, including 1 public sector. In metrology, the biggest work that was undertaken and provided subsidized rate was the importers of thermoguns and also the verification work for thermoguns, ventilators that were part and parcel of development work that was required to contain COVID-19. With that, Saul, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all our presenters for their insights. I mean, what stands out for me is the evolving nature of quality infrastructure institutions, the importance of locating these institutions into an international context, and particularly for Kenya and South Africa, the role that these institutions are playing and will play in the AFCFTA, but also the international cooperation as we moving towards an environment where we need to see trust in products, verification of products, and the ability to trade and have standardization of products. With that, let me open up to our participants and give you a chance to ask questions. You're welcome to raise your hand and ask questions, or even just make comments on some of the issues that have been raised and discussed, or to add your own insights into what you've seen in the current environment. Eduardo, I see your hand is raised. You can talk.
Thank you, Saul, and congratulations to Martin for the presentation. I would like to refer again that my presentation was based, I think I could not cover all the information that Ulrich has put in his paper about the Brazilian quality infrastructure. He has done a very good job in this regard, and obviously I could only touch a little bit of it. I recommend you all to take a look on his paper if you are more interested in Brazil and how we organize our system. And I would like to ask Ulrich, as he has put on the chat that he has prepared other quality infrastructure papers, if what kind of insight has come to him after preparing all these papers. And I think he has addressed it a little bit, talking about Korea, but I wonder if you could deepen a little bit of what is his view after studying all these countries' quality infrastructure. I know this is a very important topic. I would like to remind that the World Trade Organization conducts triennial reviews of its public policies about quality infrastructure. So I think it is important for countries to know each other better, so to establish new trade relations and to establish technical cooperation, trying to adapt themselves, as you said, so to new challenges of the 21st century, like Industry 4.0, climate changes, COVID-19. So I'd like to hear about a little more from Ulrich. What are his thoughts right now about it? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Before we go over to Uli, let's take a question from Sean, and then we can have responses to Sean's question and that comment.
Hi, everybody. My question is directed to Dr. Demana. I just wanted to check two comments that you made in your opening remarks that I thought was quite interesting. The first one is if you can tell us a little bit more about the quality policy discussion in South Africa, where it stands now, if you can. And the second point is to know a little bit more about your thoughts on how we can take quality infrastructure to the rest of government and to the rest of society. I think in the presentations, it was very clear to me that, you know, this isn't just about trade and industry. And as you also mentioned, it's about environment. But yet when we deal with the education department and when we deal with other departments, we realize that even the basics of standards or the basics of metrology is not known there. So I just wanted to hear your comment, and I would also like to welcome all the speakers, including Uli, if you also want to comment on that, because we can't be the first ones to be struggling with this. So it would be interesting to hear where Brazil is on this and also where Kenya is. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sean. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we can move into response on those two. Okay. Uli, do you want to start? And then we can move to Tshenge and then Eduardo and Martin.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo, for raising this question. Yes, this is interesting when you look to the reality of quality infrastructure in different countries. The first observation is we find quality infrastructure and the main components in nearly all countries all over the world. I think this is remarkable that we have a setting of organizations and institutions which are we can find in all economies, especially in the members of the World Trade Organization, but also beyond. And this is remarkable because other institutional settings are not spread globally. Therefore, this is an advantage also to compare and collaborate. The other thing is also that there is a joint recognized reference framework, and especially Therefore, the presentation of Martin was also important. Accreditation is the glue of these systems at the national, but also at the global level. What is surprising for me is that we have not a regular practice of documenting the landscape of quality infrastructure in the countries. When I started the studies, for example, I found in Korea a study on quality infrastructure, which also not covered everything. In Kenya, there was no study on even in Brazil with such a trajectory. Nobody has written a comprehensive description of the national quality infrastructure. Therefore, I think this is something what is surprising, and it shows that quality infrastructure as an integrated system is still on its way, and it needs to communicate internally and externally better. This is important. And the third point I wanted to add is what we emphasized also in the study is we talk about inspirational practices. In the world of quality, you talk a lot of excellence and best practices, but at the end, context matters. Each country is also different and needs to have the appropriate framework of institutions to their necessities and to their development aspirations. And therefore, what we tried to identify in each country some aspects which are inspiring for South Africa, and not only from countries which are much more advanced in this area, like South Korea, also from Kenya, for example, which is sharing the same context of African trade integration. And I think a country like South Africa and all other countries too can learn from different countries from different levels. And therefore, I think this dialogue, what we're having here, is a nice and important model to organize this kind of interchange. But we need to bring this kind of dialogue in different forums. I think, Eduardo, you mentioned WTO. Also, I'm thinking about, when I think about TIPS development, researcher, industrial policy researcher community, and also thinking about DTI, the policymaker environment. We need to bring quality infrastructure out of its niche, if technical area. We have to bring this institutional setup into a broader discussion, because we have so much knowledge and technology in the quality infrastructure which can use for the post-COVID economy, but this is not coming automatically. This needs to be communicated, and therefore this kind of communication is crucial. And for me, quality infrastructure institutions in developing and emerging countries are different than in countries, industrial countries like the UK or Germany, because you have not so many institutions in developing countries. And therefore, to foster and leverage these institutions for broader development goals is very important, because this is the asset what all countries have. And we hope with this kind of dialogues, we can get more out of the existing quality infrastructure and make it more useful for a broader economic and sustainable development.
Thanks, Uli. I think you're setting an important challenge for us. And I think, yeah, we need to definitely be doing more of this. So thank you. Tshenge, over to you.
Thank you, Sean, for those questions. They are not easy to answer. So when it comes to quality policy, what we want to do is to build on what we already have. I think it has been said that the entities, the setup that we have, it's as good as any that you can find in another country. So we are supposed to be world class. But however, you find that it's only a special group of people who know of the extent of the quality infrastructure and who are making good use of it. The rest of the country is not really using it. Quite straightforward problems that can be solved just seem not to even get attention. So what we have decided to do is that when we set up the quality policy, the first thing that we are doing is to try to bring everybody together. So we want to bring all the organizations that are working on quality together. and set a forum where they meet regularly, and say at least once per year. And in that way, we start to build a common understanding and a way of doing things. One of the things that we have realized is that in the education space, especially in the education of or the courses that are taken by seasoned managers, quality is not being emphasized, and it's one of the, I guess, one of the factors that it can make them more effective. And we will want that to be included in some of the curriculums of the programs like management development, MBA, etc. So that's one leg. I think you talked about quality for the rest of government. That's quite a difficult area. We are finding that it's also that we are not able to promote quality to all the departments as we should, all the government entities as we should. And that's, so we need a promotion leg. And that's where I see this private sector bodies. There are private sector entities that they don't do testing, they don't do inspection, or they don't even set standards. But what they do is to promote the quality philosophy. So these colleagues can really talk very well about why you need quality and how to use it, etc. And who should you go to actually get your physical solution, your physical problem solved. So I think, yeah, that's our approach. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tshenge. Any closing remarks from Eduardo, from you, and then we'll go to Martin for the final word. Thanks, Eduardo.
I would like to comment a little bit on Ulrich's remarks about the registration of this policy national environment. I think his paper is very good because he has been able to even register that we in Metro has been through a lot of changes in the last years, from political nature and from technical nature. As I said, we have been trying to modernize our regulatory model. We have done a strategic planning to modernize our mission, our goals, and we have also had changes in our directorate. So it has been a lot of changes to go through. And from the, I think it's very important. And this kind of information does not go into a more political document like the triennial reviews of the World Trade Organization. I think this type of event of the dialogue is a good, so we can be more intimate in sharing this kind of information. Also, I would like to mention that from the education aspect, INMETRO has a very important and big role nowadays. We have a master degree and doctorate degree in metrology and quality. So trying to disseminate, as Tshenge Demana has said, to other people, not only from the private sector, but also anyone that works for the Brazilian government or has interested in developing it personally itself on these issues. We have also a program to educate young people to be technical and to work on laboratories. I think it has been a huge success in developing this program. And this is our job now, disseminate the importance and trying also to view all the applications that quality infrastructure has in these new challenges of the 21st century. As I have said before, you have to look for it and look very deep to see what you can do and trying to help your country, your national economy, or on the level of the microeconomy. Each company has a role in it. It has a management system, a quality management system, an environmental management system. So everything is important. I don't know. So I'd like to hear you two about it. Thank you.
I think that covers it well. Martin, your closing remarks?
Thank you very much. I think the question, I'll start with the question, how do we take the message to the rest of government? I think that is our eternal challenge, even ourselves. We started off in 2018 trying to get our legal statute, so we had to take it to the legislators and forecast on the effort that we needed there. Now we're discussing the quality infrastructure. So there's no silver bullet for that. I think all the various quality infrastructure institutions should have a cooperative structure so that they can share the resources and address the different sectors where their solutions are used. This is one of the approaches we're trying to do now. We have about 16 regulators. So as an accreditation body by nature, we would go into signing up an MOU so that we can define some actions around how we can support them and how they can use accreditation. And I think that would be a way. What I admire most is the German model, because most of the quality infrastructure is supervised under the Ministry of Economy. In Kenya, we don't have an equivalent of Ministry of Economy, which is a horizontal ministry. So we are presently under the Ministry of Industry, which and trade, because of the two orientations. Perhaps the coordinating or the supervisory ministry should probably be more horizontal ministry that doesn't take those organizations to only purely belong to industry, but that they serve the entire economy. We currently have nearly 1/3 of the accredited laboratories are medical laboratories. So each time we go and run in, we find they're trying to do another form of accreditation. So perhaps that's what I can maybe give as ideas to think as you rent your policy. Do you want to house the coordinating department within a specific ministry or make it in a horizontal ministry? It's something to try. I just want to then make a comment to Ulrich. Thank you very much for bringing out that we actually do not document our evolutions. And I think it's knowledge management that we need to do also within our quality infrastructure. As we were speaking, an idea came, we have a public policy research institute. And I think that's one of the areas we could have a dialogue to ensure that we document all this history from 1912. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we've raised a number of important questions, and I see this as the start of a conversation and a much needed conversation. I think Ulrich raised it as key that we need to see the importance of quality infrastructure as the glue and how critical it is as we're moving forward, particularly, looking at economic recovery, but also just to support industrialization across our economies. We've come to the end of our session. I want to thank all of our speakers for your valuable insights and your inputs. As I said on the chat, we will make the presentations and the recording of the seminar available. And thank you to everyone for joining this useful session. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.